Absolutely. Thanks, Neil, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I don't feel particularly long-winded today, so I'm not worried about time, but we do want to hit the highlights of the new Disaster Instructor Certification Program. So thanks for joining us. Just a reminder of the housekeeping issues. Mute your phones, mute your devices, and then if you need to take another call, please hang up and then rejoin us when you get done with that other call so we don't listen to your hold music. This will be posted and recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to circle back at some point and reference this presentation. Also, just a reminder that this is an informational call only. At the end of the presentation, I've got some reference material. That's the official policy and procedure around the Disaster Instructor Certification Program. So for today's conversation, it's informational only. So let's talk about what's new. There's a couple of things that are new. Basic Instructor Fundamentals is new. Basically, it's a one and a half hour online course that replaces Fundamentals of Instruction and Facilitation. Another element that's new is Basic Instructor Specialty Training. It basically replaces DIST. The cool thing is that it's a one-day course. So for new basic instructors, they can take the online Basic Instructor Fundamentals course and then come to a one-day FIST course, and then be after they go through the process, be certified as a basic instructor. For advanced instructors, what's new is Advanced Instructor Fundamentals. It's a 40-minute online course to inform advanced instructors about the new roles and what it really means to be an advanced instructor. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of these elements as we go through the presentation. Also, what's new is the Disaster Instructor Development Plan. So we'll have an opportunity now as a cadre of instructors, both basic and advanced, to really look at what is our development plan. After we go through this process, what do we want to do with it? How do we want to impact the organization and actually have legacy to the organization as disaster instructors? So we actually get to work on plans now as far as our own development as instructors and what that means moving forward. The other piece that's new is the Disaster Advanced Instructor Self-Assessment. It's a one-page form similar to the one for a basic instructor to assess competency. So taking a look at what are our competencies as instructors, what do we think we need to work on, and then how can we leverage that self-assessment as we facilitate classes and make sure that we're always in this game to improve our facilitation techniques. And then the last thing that's new is an Advanced Instructor Community of Practice. It's basically a forum for advanced instructors to share best practices, successes, and challenges after we facilitate courses and coaching proficiency. So pretty excited that we're actually becoming a lot more professional about our instructor. So that's kind of what's new. So why are we doing this? First of all, let me tell you who I am. For those of you who don't know, I'm Leonard Levy. I'm the Division Disaster Director for SWARM, supporting Oklahoma and Arkansas. I'm also the training lead for SWARM Division. I'm also an advanced instructor. Been an advanced instructor since 2003. I've worked on instructor certification programs, things like that. So I have an interest in training. I have an interest in instructor development. So I'm pretty excited about this new instructor certification program. Let's take a look at why we're doing this. One is we've got new regions, and regions have taken new form and new shape, and we've got within those new regions, we've got new relationships. And we need to go through this instructor certification program to kind of get a sense of who our instructor cadre is. We know we've got a lot of basic and advanced level instructors out there, but this is an opportunity for the regions to meet their instructor rosters and make sure that everyone who's listed as an instructor really truly is interested in being an instructor and understands what it means to be an instructor moving forward. We're also doing this because we've got enhanced course delivery. If you look at the continuum of courses over the last decade, we've changed the way we facilitate courses. Just 10 years ago, our courses were very technical driven. All about how to do disaster. So you really had to have a good sound technical background to be a good instructor. If you look at our course design now, not only do we have multiple venues for courses, The intent of the courses is much, much different, and the intent of the instructor for the courses is much, much different. Where now it's more facilitation. So think of a, I don't know, cruise director who wants to get everybody on board and wants to get everybody having a good time and understand the intent of the cruise. That's what the new instructors need to do. Yes, we still need to have technical foundation and background and expertise, but the way we facilitate courses now is much, much different than we did just a few years ago. And so we want to make sure that we've got the right people facilitating these courses to make sure that it's not all technical driven, but essentially it's a group learning environment, and the instructor basically facilitates the learning, and it's not all didactic or one-way lecture. And then the third reason we're doing this is for the instructor development. As we talked about the self-assessment piece. That's one part of the instructor development, to actually write out a development plan, to kind of get a sense with our region training leads why we're doing this. What do we want to do down the road as an instructor? But quite frankly, one of the cool things about this new certification program is that it is, you're certified for a certain time period now, for 3 years. And so every 3 years, we're going to have to go back and have a conversation about competencies, and we'll look at the self-assessment, look at our knowledge, skills, and abilities to be instructors. Quite frankly, I took the National Instructor Training Conference, the NITC, back in 2003 to become an advanced instructor. And ever since then, I've never really gone through any type of recertification. I know that my skills probably are different now than they were 10 years ago. Some good, some better, maybe some not so much. So I like the fact that we're going to revisit our instructor database and our instructor cadre every few years to make sure we've got the sharpest of the sharp standing in front of particularly new volunteers with the organization to really get them excited about becoming part of our organization. So those are the reasons why we're doing this. This isn't an opportunity to be punitive. We're not trying to scrub our instructor database. We're not trying to remove people. We want to make sure that when we facilitate a course, we've got the best of the best in front of a group of learners to get the right information. So I'm going to stop there. Neil is monitoring the chat room for me, but I will also open it up for questions for those on the phone. Any questions so far? All right. So let's look at basic instructor reauthorization. So if you're a basic instructor, and don't let this list intimidate you, when you look at the requirements of a current basic instructor, it's really not much different than what they do now. I mean, it's a long list, but it's not much different than what they do now, so don't let it intimidate you. But basically, you go to the Disaster Instructor Training Topic Hub on the Exchange, you download some forms, the instructor application, the self-assessment, and then the instructor development plan. Complete the self-assessment, complete the development plan, and then you get to have a discussion with the region training lead. So each region has identified a training lead. And these instructors will sit down with a training lead and just have a conversation about where are they proficient, what classes do they think they can teach currently based on their knowledge, skills, and abilities, based on some of their relief operation experience or some of the programmatic things that they're working on. And then just have a conversation with the region training lead. After they do that, then they complete the Basic Instructor Fundamentals online course and pass the assessment. If the region training lead wants to provide some optional observation or monitoring for the instructor, they can do that. That doesn't have to be the case, so that's a conversation between the region and the instructor, and then they receive approval from the region to continue on as a basic level instructor. And all current instructors must be reauthorized by April 1st, 2015. So that's our deadline. We've given quite a bit of time for people to reauthorize under this new construct. And fortunately, we've got some time so you can really think about how you want to move forward as an instructor. Take a look at for regions to take a look at their instructor cadre and their database. Make sure that they're having those good, honest conversations, And again, making sure we're putting the best of the best in front of a group of learners. Questions about basic instructor reauthorization for current basic instructors?
Yes, J.C. Cobb.
Go ahead.
I'm out of Kerrville, Texas, and I'm going to have a meeting with an instructor to evaluate my instructor competency. How do you envision that happening?
Yeah, as far as how the meeting occurs.
Yeah,
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, it says have a discussion. After I complete my instructor development plan, and have a discussion. How do you facilitate that? How do you make that happen?
So basically, you're going to reach out to your region training lead and say, look, I'm interested in reauthorizing as a basic level instructor. I've completed these forms. I'd like to set up a meeting. And that doesn't have to be in person. That can be over the phone. Or you could even, if some region training leads, I would imagine, would bring their group of instructors that are local, just bring it together and just kind of walk through some of this together, but have the individual conversations. So there's a variety of venues where you could have these discussions, but it doesn't have to be face-to-face. So don't feel like you have to travel and a couple hundred miles. This can be over the phone. Does that help you, JC?
Yeah. The other thing I would like to see is somebody sit down and write a linear list of all of the courses that a disaster instructor would be teaching, and circle the ones you choose to teach.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're looking at our current list of disaster courses right now. I don't know that we have like a linear list. I know that you could obviously take a look at at all the courses on the exchange. But quite frankly, I mean, it's not like there's hundreds. We're only talking, a handful of courses. And quite frankly, the instructors, as you know, JC, the instructors shouldn't be instructing courses where they don't have familiarity in the subject. But that's where that self-assessment and that development plan, some of that homework prior to that discussion occurs. So you do some research, do your homework, and then be prepared to have that discussion about which courses you feel like you want to instruct.
This is Matt in North Texas Region. I have a question regarding the reauthorization process. It appears that the sole authority for approval and reauthorization lies with the regional instructor individual, and be it for me to admit that there have been times in the past when the Red Cross has had personal issues between different staff members, and there were folks who were refused to be authorized in certain regions that had national permissions and vice versa. Is there any recourse for those that feel they are inappropriately unauthorized to teach Red Cross courses to go somewhere else to receive a second look?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so basically, after you have the discussion about what your desire is as an instructor, you go complete the online course, you pass that assessment. And then, that's not the final answer. If you feel like you're not being allowed, if you feel like someone's not being allowed to be an instructor, that's when you can sign them up and get optional observation or monitoring, which is conducted by an advanced instructor, not necessarily the region training lead. So if the region training lead says no, the instructor still has an outlet to become approved with the monitoring and observation, and then that becomes a discussion between the region training lead and the monitor of the course. And then I'm just going to say that I've been involved in discussions here recently as a DDD about basic level instructors. The DDD, PDSRBs are more than happy to become part of that conversation as well, because this is all around capacity development for regions. So we will be more than happy to participate in that conversation if it comes to that.
Hey, Leonard, this is Jason.
Go ahead.
Who maintains the monitoring documentation that goes with the monitoring of a basic instructor?
The region training lead does.
Okay, thank you.
All good questions. Anything else on the basic instructor reauthorization?
This is Keith Bridges in North Texas region,
Good.
and I'm really excited about this process because, as Matt had indicated, and he's in my region, we have had instructors that have disengaged through the years, and I have assembled a listing of around 140 instructors here in the North Texas region that I'm reaching out to. I'm using Volunteer Connection, but I'm using the instructor self-assessment that I've turned into a form. I'm reaching out to all of those instructors for potential recertification or re-engagement. And so it's really going to help me because it's going to give me a finite list of who the instructors are in each of the territories and what they teach. And so this is fitting well into the reorganization of training and the alignment of the instructors for the North Texas region. So.
Great. No, thanks for that, Keith. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on now to the new basic instructor. So basically, there's a lot of the same steps as reauthorization. The only difference is you still have to go through doing the self-assessment, looking at the training plan, doing that online course. The only difference is completing the basic instructor specialty training. So you do the online course, the basic instructor fundamentals, 1.5-hour online course, and then you sign up for a FIST class, which again is a 1-day course now as opposed to the 2-day course it used to be. And then you schedule to co-facilitate a full basic level class within a subject matter that you have experience with. Those are the only differences between the reauthorization and the new basic instructor. So fairly straightforward.
Hey, Leonard, this is Neil.
Go ahead.
Hey, I've got a question that came through the chat feature. And so is this new certification program required of volunteers who were previously distrained in order to instruct the new volunteer orientation?
That's a great question. I do not know. Because we're just looking at we're looking at instructor certification. We are not looking at qualifications to teach courses. So, I'm not sure if the fact sheet on the volunteer orientation lists the requirements. So I think you'd have to go back and look at the fact sheet for the orientation to figure out who certified the orientation. But I'll follow up on that.
This is Keith in North Texas again. The 1-day basic instructor course, that is fantastic. We have such a large geographic area that the 2-day course required a lot of our students to get a hotel and that sort of thing. And this way, if they want to make a long day out of it, the new instructors can drive to a location where the course is taught and then drive home that night instead of dragging it over the 2 days. So it's really going to work well. I have about 40 potential instructors signed up to take the course.
Good. All right, moving on to what about the professional educators? And this is, quite frankly, the information and material around instructor certification was posted about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and they realized that they didn't have the professional educator piece right on it, so they pulled it down until they fixed it. But basically, there is a certification process for professional educators. The fortunate thing is that once again, our professional educators, if they can prove that they've got a valid teaching certificate or for professional training experience, they do not have to go through the FIST course. They, again, do some of the instructor application, the self-assessment and development plan, have the discussion with the region training lead, take the online course, 1.5-hour online course, and then, you know, facilitate with somebody on in one of the courses. They can request, or the region training lead can request the observation or monitoring, work through that development plan, and then they receive approval. So again, not much different than what it was before, but we finally, you know, once again, we've indicated that the professional educator does not have to sit through the one-day BIS course if they can verify that they're a professional educator, excuse me, or hold a kind of a teaching certificate.
Does a PHSS instructor fall under this category?
You know, let me look at something real quick, because I saw all that in the document. And there is an opportunity to have a discussion on crossing that one line. And I want to say that it's a discussion with the region training lead about their subject matter expertise and their knowledge of disaster. But I believe it counts.
Traditionally, if they are a professional educator or a PHSS instructor, then the instructor training piece of it has counted, and then we look at their disaster experience as a subject matter expert in order to teach that. I've had several that have bridged over from PHSS. So this is Keith and Dallas.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. And no, that's good, and you're right. Let me bear with you while I read you what the guidance is. Excuse me. To ensure that instructors understand and practice the skills needed for facilitating disaster courses, current PHSS and other Red Cross non-disaster instructors should review the requirements for basic disaster instructor and professional educator to determine the appropriate authorization path. Check with your regional training lead or contact disaster training at redcross.org if you have questions. So we do allow for that. But it all goes down to that discussion with the region training lead. Good question. All right, moving on to advanced instructor reauthorization.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is there a clarification or further clarification on what is defined as a professional educator? You know, because we had ran into those situations in the past, so I was curious if there was just additional clarification.
You know, it's still listed as vague. As long as they have documented, like, corporate training experience, a teaching certificate, or a professional education experience that's documented, that all counts.
Right.
So you don't have to be a high school teacher. You don't have to be a college professor. If you taught if you're a corporate trainer, then as long as you can document that, then you're good.
Okay.
Great question. All right, moving on to advanced instructor reauthorization. A lot of the same steps, not a whole lot different. For current advanced instructors, again, looking at that advanced instructor application, doing the self-assessment, looking at that development plan, and again, all current instructors have to do this. So I'm going to have to do it. Everyone who's an advanced instructor is going to have to do it. And again, it's not punitive. I'm really excited about this, as Keith kind of indicated as well. I'm really excited about this process. To me, it's not laborious. To me, it's making sure that we've got the right people in front of the right group of learners. Having that discussion with the region training lead, with kind of the self-assessment and the development plan, looking at knowledge, skills, and abilities, and DRO experience. Take the advanced instructor fundamentals online course and pass the assessment. And then again, it's up to the region training lead and the instructor if they want to have observation or monitoring. And when they facilitate a course, and if they do that, or if they don't, after they go through these steps, they receive approval to be an advanced instructor. So, you know, I'm all for feedback. I'm always all about feedback and improving my facilitation techniques, my presentation techniques. So I'm going to ask for observation and monitoring when I do monitoring. The hope is that for all instructors, is that people are instructing or facilitating once a year in the courses that they're certified and approved to facilitate or instruct. So once a year, you should be getting in front of a class doing something to keep those skills honed and sharp. Like the basic instructors, advanced instructors have to be reauthorized by April 1, 2015. So what if you're a new advanced instructor? Same steps as the reauthorization. Basically, you take the class you want to facilitate. Obviously, you're going to be co-facilitating with an advanced instructor. You can also have monitoring from a third advanced instructor who can monitor the course to provide that feedback. And once you do that, you receive approval. So go through those same steps on the self-assessment and the development plan, have the conversation with the region training lead, and then co-facilitate, kind of the basics of it. Questions about that?
Okay, I have a question. If you are both basic and advanced, do you just take the advanced instructor certification and that covers both, or do you have to do both?
That's a great question. Advanced instructors are certified to teach basic level courses as long as they have subject matter expertise and knowledge, skills, and abilities in the subject matter of the course that they want to instruct. So if you're an advanced instructor, you only have to do the advanced instructor reauthorization. You don't have to go back and do basic as well. Great question. Anything in the chat room, Mr. McGurk?
There was a question that just asked that same one, so that's nothing in the chat room right now.
Awesome.
Leonard, as the curriculum changes, do we anticipate changes to the advanced level programs? I know that there's been discussion about revamping Service Delivery Site Manager and Fundamentals Chapters After Ops Management and some of those. So are we anticipating seeing those continue as they are, or are we anticipating seeing new classes, or what can we kind of anticipate for the advanced level?
Yeah, for the advanced level courses, we will see changes. We'll see alternative methods of delivery, so more remote type teaching opportunities. But as far as content and as far as the advanced instructors, I don't see any new advanced courses. But again, we are looking at our instructor cadre because of the way we facilitate courses now may look different. And quite frankly, some people don't do well as a distance learning instructor because you don't get immediate feedback. You're basically talking to yourself and hope that everyone's listening and paying attention. Some people don't do well with that. Others would really do well with that, and quite frankly are more comfortable doing that than they are in front of a group of learners face-to-face. So when we're rolling out these new courses, we're looking at alternative facilitation methods and venues. But the course content is going to change as we look at our new concept of operations and things like that. But it's really not going to change the instructor certification piece.
Thanks.
All right. So we talked about monitoring. Oh, was there another question?
Yeah, there is a question that I came to the chat feature. Let me get to it really quick. So are there national job descriptions for basic and advanced instructors?
No. There's not. Only because, with the self-assessment and the instructor development plan, there's I'm going to get to the reference material, but quite frankly, the Disaster Instructor Certification Program document dated October 2014 is kind of a policy and procedure for advanced instructors, but there's really not like a job description, position description for instructors. All right, so we talked about monitoring courses, monitoring basic level courses. We can do that, monitor advanced level courses. So one of the cool things about being an advanced level instructor now is that there's kind of a monitoring responsibility. To be an advanced level instructor, there is an expectation that you'll get out and monitor courses. Now, there's not a finite, you have to do one, you know, in so many months or whatever, but there is an expectation to be an advanced instructor. You're going to help develop more advanced instructors. We're going to leverage you as a force multiplier to develop more instructors. And I say you, that's the universal you, including me. So we'll have an opportunity as advanced level instructors to get out and monitor other courses and other instructors. The monitors of the instructors are authorized and signed by the region training lead. And you can see there that they must be an active disaster advanced instructor. They prefer to have DRO experience beyond region of affiliation. That's going to be tougher and tougher now that our regions are growing. So that's kind of a preferred element right now. But we do want to have DRO experience, especially with the advanced level courses. As we look at service delivery site management, as we look at fundamentals of chapter disaster operations management, as we look at some of the other advanced level courses, you do need to have that DRO experience. And then meet all the requirements of a instructor monitor. Questions about that? All right, so here are the references. Fairly straightforward. If you look at the Disaster Instructor Training Toolkit on the Exchange, there's a whole lot of wealth of forms and information that we kind of reference on this slide deck. And then I've also listed the link there to the document that I just referred to, the Disaster Instructor Certification Program document dated October 2014. So that's where you can go to get all of the information around the instructor recertification and new instructor information. The regional training leads, as Keith indicated, the region training leads should be or will be or have already sent out to their current list of instructors the reauthorization process. The advanced instructors have already received some information from national headquarters on this process, but the basic level instructors should be receiving word from their region training leads to get them going on this new process. So that's kind of all I've got for today. Any other questions while we got you on the line here?
This is Becky from San Antonio.
Go ahead.
My question is, as an instructor, okay, we go through all this, and you want us to become more facilitators. At what point is the training material that we have going to be for that? All our training material is just outdated.
Yeah, if you pay attention to the disaster training area on the Exchange, there's a lot of new courses coming out. So it's incumbent upon the instructors to take a look at the new courses. Yes, we don't have a new, especially for advanced level, we don't have a new service delivery site management. We don't have a new FCPO. You know, we've got some new courses that were just released. They're continuing to be released. It's fast and furious for the training department and MHP to get this new training out. So they recognize that there's a lag. So, you know, we don't have a solid answer for you, but just pay attention to the new courses as they get released and make sure that we integrate that into the region training plans. But they're coming.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Leonard.
Will
Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
will ConOps have separate instructors, or will it just be a basic level class that, you know, that's part of the regular curriculum after the new releases have occurred?
I want to say that ConOps is going to be a web-based training. Neil, do you have any other information on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, some of the things are going to come out. I think the organization is trying to push out some standardized training, you know, for the concept of operations course. I think some of it's going to be web-based. I don't know in the long run what if there will be in-person courses for the concept of operations. I think that's still a fluid type of discussion right now, but I know that in the short term, there's going to be some training that will be coming out over the next month or two that will be web-based. But what the long-term solution will be, I'm not sure, because as you know, one of the classes that is out of date. It's still not has not been officially retired, but it's the Fundamentals of Chapter Disaster Operations Management course. So I'm not sure if there will be a replacement, in-class replacement of that course, but and I think, you know, the organization and folks in disaster services at National are still looking to see what the overall strategy will be for the ConOps class.
Okay, thank you.
This is Keith in Dallas. With the FICDOM, as you were talking, Neil, you and I talked about it, that it's out of date and there's some decisions to be made. I'm interested in the SDSM and what's happening across SWARM with that. Are most places still teaching SDSM using the current materials, or has that course been put on hold?
Leonard, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to take a swing at it?
Go ahead and take a swing at it, because I don't have a lot of optics on that right now.
Sure. So good question, Keith. And again, I'll give you an answer that's not an official answer, because officially we haven't had a class that has replaced the service delivery support management. But I'll sort of I'll let you know the approach sort of that I'm working and I'm taking on it. You know, I just recently, a few days ago, reviewed the course material for the service delivery site management course. And the way I look at it, there's about 30% of that information that is no longer relevant. And so the 70% of it still is. And so as opposed to the FIDCOM class, which I think is the reverse, 70% of the information is no longer relevant and 30% of it still is. So the approach, and again, I want to make very clear, this is an unofficial, this is not a mandate or anything like that, but the way that I've sort of communicated and worked with, that I'm approaching it, is that I encourage people to still teach the service delivery site management course, as long as you have the instructor knows where some of the can point out where some of the things that are out of date are, and then to really focus more, as opposed to the FIDCOM class, focus more on sort of the concept of operation training materials that have come out. So that's sort of the approach that I would say. I think there are still a lot of good pieces of information in the SDSM course, as opposed to the FIDCOM class, which is really, you know, about 70% outdated material at this point.
Okay, thank you, Neil. And I attended the SDSM down at the Leadership Institute in Houston, and that was my take on it too, is that it's a valuable course as long as that 30% is edited. And part of my concern with this is that we have our curriculum paths that people are looking at those two courses for promotions, and so I think the path I will take is to go ahead and teach SDSM, edited as you said, but then pull the FICDOM course off and put the concepts of operation in place of that, and that way people can go ahead and work through their promotion process. Does that sound like an acceptable approach?
So, Keith, since you're from the North Texas region, and I support the regions in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, the approach, I don't have an issue with that approach, and I've worked with sort of knowing, you know, that specifically the questions and sort of the approach that you guys are taking. I've already, you know, communicated that up with some of our folks at National about it. And so for any regions that are you know, having that question, what I would encourage you guys to do is talk to your RDOs, talk to your division disaster directors, to understand what you think an approach would be for. Because again, we're in an area now where we don't have official ConOps for credit courses out, because the ConOps training that we took back in spring, you know, around the division, it was a national workshop, but it's not a 4-credit course. And so we're still waiting. We're still in sort of this area of flux. And so we can't just stop training people, but it's really going to, I would encourage you guys, if you want to know, if you have, you know, strategies to still teach FIDCOM, to still teach service delivery site management, no one is telling you not to. What I would encourage you guys to do is have those conversations with your RDOs, with your division disaster directors, just to make sure that you guys are, that the methodology that you guys are using is visible to your RDOs as well as your division disaster directors, so that when a question comes up, they have that information so they can support it in the decisions that you guys make with sort of the national headquarters team.
Thank you. Great answer.
Hey, Leonard, I've got a number of questions that have come through on the chat feature. Do you want to start taking them?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Come over here.
So let's see. First one is, what do regional training managers report to recertify themselves?
Well, that's a great question. I would venture to say that not all region training leads are advanced instructors. Some are, but not all of them are, and that's okay. So I think it's a conversation with the RDO and the region training lead. But basically, you can't really certify it yourself. So if a region training lead is also an advanced instructor,
I was just going to send a letter saying I'm recertified.
Just work with an RDO or another advanced instructor that's currently an advanced instructor that's going through the process. I mean, so it's like chicken and egg, right? Which one comes first? You know, we know we've got some good advanced instructors out there. Get them through the process very quickly, and if you do it kind of simultaneously, you're going to be okay.
Okay, and the next question, is the workforce engagement manager at the regional level the regional training lead?
Again, it's going to look different across the regional spectrum. I know some are, and some aren't. That's just a conversation with your region to figure out who that person is.
Okay. And the next question is, who is qualified to teach the in-person part of the training, and when will that course material be released?
So we need clarification, which in-person training?
My assumption is that that's the BIST course, because that's the only in-person class.
Right. So the same, that's a great question. If it's the BIST course, it's the same certification as the BIST. So advanced level instructor can facilitate the BIST course, just like they could the BIST course.
And you may have already mentioned this, Leonard, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. It's my understanding that in order for an advanced instructor to teach that BIST course, they don't actually have to take the BIST course first. Is that correct?
Correct, because they've essentially already become an advanced level instructor. They obviously should do their homework and their prep and do their research on it to make sure they're up to speed on it. But no, they do not have to take the BIST course. If you're an advanced instructor, you don't have to take the BIST course in order to facilitate it.
Okay. Two more questions. What if someone is not a good instructor? How will that be handled?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, now we've got a couple of stopgaps. We've got the kind of the initial conversation with the region training lead, so that that's the first stop is if an instructor thinks they're really good, the region training lead should know, or there's people that know these folks as to whether or not they're good or not. So a development plan could be developed during that initial conversation with the region training lead. Then if there's still questions, we can explore and identify some of those issues whenever we monitor their co-facilitating of a course. And there's nothing to say that you can't kind of do a spot monitor, throughout the year. So if we've gone through this process and somebody presented really good through this process and we think that they're good to go, and then we start getting feedback of, hey, this really isn't a good instructor, next time they facilitate, just do a spot monitor on them and just kind of take notes from an advanced instructor to take notes on them and provide that feedback to the region and the instructor. Good question.
And the last question from the chat feature is, will travel expenses be reimbursed to monitor remote classes?
So that's going to be, you have to work that out through the region. Because I can't answer what regions are going to do for that. And again, fortunately, for the most part, there's not a whole lot of mandatory monitoring. Some of the advanced level courses, they have to be co-taught anyway. So, again, the co-presenter could also be the monitor to save an expense. So you don't necessarily have to have a third if it's inconvenient. But that's just a question you have to work through the region.
And that's the last question on the chat feature.
Well, great, guys. guys. I've got 1,100 hours on the dot. So even with our little glitch at the beginning, I figured we wouldn't exceed the balance of the time for the call. So I do thank you again. Leverage the reference material, reach out to your regions, reach out to your DDDs, DDSRDs, and then you can always email disastertraining@redcross.org for any other questions. So you've got a wealth of resources as we go through this. We are kind of keeping track of this recertification process. We want to make sure that the regions come out of this with a really good sound list of instructor cadre to be able to meet the training needs of these regions. So thanks everybody for your time.